Welcome to Disruption Now. I'm your host and moderator, Rob Richardson. And of course, we're talking about MidwestCon. And we have one of my favorite speakers coming, who is here, a local ecosystem builder, Helen Todd, creator of Creativity Squared, and also the co-founder of Cincy AI Meetup, the largest AI meetup in our region. Helen, it's great to have you on.
It's so good to be here. Thank you for having me on, Rob.
Yeah, it's great to have you. And you're a fellow podcaster yourself. This is kind of a mini podcast. We do kind of our live LinkedIn. So you have how many episodes?
Oh, goodness. I think this week is our 57th, and it's a special series that supports the Arts Wave 2024 Black and Brown program, where 22 amazing Black and Brown artists got $10,000 in grant money to do a project to interpret the theme truth and innovation. So super excited to amplify their stories and the amazing work that they do. It was last week, this week, and next week. So 3 in a row for that series.
Awesome. Well, it's I can't wait to see that. As some of you may or may not know, Blink is the largest light projection show in the world, and those who are from this region definitely know that. But there are many that listen that may not know that. That happens in October. We're definitely going to do some more to promote that at MidwestCon, and looking forward to definitely seeing that some more, Helen. So I know you started. Let's start with your work in AI and how you started since the AI meetup, which is now, of course, the largest meetup in the region. It's been going strong now for it's going on close to a year. It's a little under a year, but it feels longer because 2024 it's just been a long but short year. So tell me, like you've created this, you and Kendra have led this ecosystem of getting everybody centered around AI and seeing the possibilities of collaborating and working together. First question, like, what was your original vision when you and Kendra created this, and how do you believe it's going?
Yeah, sure. I love to talk about Cincy AI. It's such an amazing community that we have here in Cincinnati, and it's just like one of the important nodes of our ecosystem, MidwestCon being one of those two. Yeah, so I had already dived into all things AI in April of last year when I launched my podcast, Creativity Squared. And a mutual friend, had tagged me in a post on LinkedIn, actually, of Kendra, where she had just put out some feelers of like, hey, I'm thinking about doing this AI meetup. Anyone interested? And I immediately was like, yes, I am. And we hopped on the phone. I think that was September of last year, and then by October we had our first meetup. But what Kendra says is, we're both connectors. I know you're a connector too. And she was trying to, people were coming to her for AI and she was putting people together. And she's like, this is just not efficient. So why don't we bring everyone into the community together in one place to connect, collaborate, and learn from one another? Because one thing that I think is kind of funny about Cincinnati, and I got this from Startup Cincy Week last year, is like, we don't even know all of the talent and all of the amazing people and all of the projects that are right here in our back door, our backyard. And so Cincy AI is just like one of those answers to get everyone together. And we're so honored to have Dr. Kelly Cohen be our organizing sponsor, who's
Absolutely.
an amazing AI researcher at the UC University of Cincinnati. And then we also are in partnership with the UC Digital Futures building, which if people have been following, you probably know that that building is part of a $100 million investment into the Cincinnati Innovation District. It's along with the 1819 building, one of the most future forward buildings in Cincinnati. So we're
Absolutely.
so honored to be able to host our Cincy AI meetups every month at the UC Digital Futures building. And we get about anywhere from, 130 to 150 people a month that come together. And it's everything from your AI curious to the users to the builders all in one place. But yeah, we love it. We're coming up on our 1-year anniversary and don't plan on slowing down anytime soon.
Oh, that's great. So you had this momentum this year. So let's say, people often underestimate what they can do in 1 year, and they overestimate. I should say people often overestimate what they can do in 1 year and underestimate what they can do in 5 years. So if you look 5 years into the future for Cincy AI meetup, what does success look like, and how would you measure it?
Oh goodness, that's a great question.
I have to ask these questions.
Yeah, Yeah. Well, Kendra and I, who's my amazing co-host and co-founder of Cincy AI, we've internally talked like, do we keep it just super local or do we expand it? I have other people reaching out to me in other cities that have meetups that are like, hey, can we zoom in, collaborate? What's your secret sauce that we can bring to others? So the more that we can connect and share our secret, it's not a secret, our formula for other people to benefit, I think the
Yeah,
better. One of the core pillars that I know that you support too is responsible AI.
absolutely.
And we really embrace that and encourage it for all of our community members. Dr. Kelly Cohen is a big advocate for responsible AI. So I guess if I look out in the future, if we're still doing monthly meetings, uplifting the entire region. Our mantra is the rising tide lifts all ships. And we really kind of helped the world recognize that Cincinnati is a hub for responsible AI and have that reflected in our community and the ecosystem. I think we've done our job.
Well, that's wonderful. No, responsible AI is something that Dr. Cohen, Dr. Kelly Cohen, who is internationally known, that we've sometimes take for granted here, who's been an expert in AI for a long time, and responsible AI, as you and I often say, and many people don't know, AI is not new, right? Not at all. In terms of how it's been used, machine learning, neural networks, all these things have been going on for a long time. Generative AI at its level, it is newer in how it's been applied, and people are able to use this in a very just easy way. But with that, of course, to quote Spider-Man, with great power comes great responsibility, right? So it's we're seeing folks move fast with AI. Like the driverless cars that use AI and then has accidents and people don't know why that happens. I'm curious, when you look at AI, it's obviously one of the most transformative technologies we've ever seen. And I know you are an optimist, but I want to take both sides of the coin because I think I also want to just understand both perspectives. So let's start off with the worst case scenario. What is the worst case scenario of AI, let's say, in 3 to 5 years? That's my first question. My second question is, what is the best case scenario for AI and how do we make that future happen?
I will let's see, try not to get political, but if the proposal of AI that Trump's team put forward were to get adopted, which would, I don't think that there's enough regulations right now around this very, as you said, transformative and powerful technology. That if they take away more regulations, that's going to be extremely problematic. If AI is used even more, with unbridled carte blanche. However, from a military standpoint and a weaponized standpoint, that's not a world that I want to live in. We're already seeing that. And, I'm very pro responsible AI, human centered AI, and that it's people over profits, and that it should serve humans, and humans should always be in the center of how is AI going to help amplify the best of human potential, not replace us, not surveil us in a sense to extract more data from us that doesn't serve us and just serves profits or whatever that may be. And I know I mentioned Amy Webb a lot on my show, and I'm a big fan of her. One thing that she said at her 2024 South by Southwest presentation this year is that we kind of could see like all these massive tech players just consolidating more power and more money. And she called them tech authoritarians more so than
Yeah.
tech altruists or optimists. And I think that's something that we should
I
be.
call them digital dictatorships. That's what I call them. But go ahead.
Yeah. And I think it's something to just be mindful of like how do we put the power back in the people to own their data, to own their privacy, and make it work for them to really live up to the promise of how to amplify the best of human potential. So I think it's, one reason why I have my podcast is this is the next internet, it's the next industrial revolution. And there's so much fear and the whole spectrum of feelings around it. But if you think back to the internet and you miss that bandwagon, I don't want anyone with their heads in the sand and then getting hit by a Mack truck by what's coming. So whether you're scared or not about AI, I think it's in everyone's best interest to understand what's happening and what's coming so you can be more informed and less fearful and be more empowered to understand how you want to move forward in a way where you can maintain your autonomy and whatnot and agency.
Yeah. Before you answer the next question about the best case scenario, how do you go about tackling that fear? Because that's a real thing that a lot of folks with, I'll say, privilege. When I say privilege, access to the knowledge. I went to school for engineering. I'm always at a university. Like, there is some level of privilege that I have, also that you have. So having that knowledge and wisdom and experience and that exposure, I should say, is a level of privilege that we do have. But many people don't and are fearful of and don't think they have the either capacity or they're fearful of what it might do, I guess. How do you start the conversation when people are fearful? How do you build trust in such a situation?
Subscribe to my podcast, Creativity Squared. It is a safe space where we explore and you can dip your toes into it and just kind of listen to the latest thoughts. I say that jokingly, but truly, it's a place for people to start to learn about AI because I'm learning about it and bringing everyone along with me
to rephrase the
asking the
question.
questions.
Yes, I mean, that's a good place they can go to your platform. What I'm saying, when people go to your platform, people ask you a question, how do you get them comfortable with the technology or comfortable with that this is not something that you should be fearful of, but something you should embrace? What's the first step in that process of overcoming fear? Let's do it that way. What's the first step in overcoming fear? AI is one example of it, but it's probably bigger than that. Like, how do you, with marginalized communities and others, what's the first step to overcome fear?
Yeah, well, I guess I've embraced AI, but I don't want to, I guess, force AI upon anyone. So like my show, we covered the good, the bad, and everything in between. But if you don't want to embrace AI, I mean, it's kind of embedded into all facets of our lives. So you're already using it, whether you like it or not.
Yeah.
But
Yeah,
if you
you
don't
can't
want
opt
to
out of
say,
the system. It exists. It's like saying, like, yeah,
yeah,
you don't want a phone.
yeah, but I don't want to force anyone to do anything that they don't. But I think it's just education, understanding what's happening, and also just testing and like playing with the tools. They're very accessible. There's a lot free, but just note that the free ones, they're collecting the data and you're training the model with that. So just be aware.
Yes. It's
But
something I repeat often. Hella, this is the point. Nothing is free. If it's free, you're the product. So just know that you're the product.
yeah, or they're just extracting they need so much data, they're just extracting so much data from the free users. But you can test it and and start playing with it because once you realize and start playing with it, it's like chatting with a robot, like texting a friend, but it's a very smart robot that has scraped the internet for better or for worse that can answer almost any question under the sun. Sometimes accurately, sometimes hallucinating, which you should also be aware of. But I think it's just education and starting to dip your toes in it and see, and it becomes way less intimidating once you start understanding dipping your toes in it.
No, great. It's all about empowerment for sure. All right. So the best case scenario for AI, like, what is that and how do we make that a reality?
Ooh, the best case scenario of AI. You know, uh, I forget the name, but there was an economist of the past who said like that people in our time period, one of the biggest issues that they're going to have is because productivity has found so many efficiencies that they're not going to have to work and they're going to have all of this free time. And the biggest issue is going to be what are they going to do with all of this leisure time? Well, do we all feel the benefits of that? No, we don't. But I do like, and I know some people might actually find this a little controversial, but I am actually okay with if AI is doing some more of the menial tasks, maybe some of the more dangerous tasks that put humans at danger. And freeing up time where we don't have to work as much. I like that idea. I think one of the biggest, well, there's a lot of, big questions in this very transitional period. And we also find a lot of meaning in work. Our identities are tied to work. But I can find a lot of identity and a lot of meaning outside of work as well, and how I want to spend my time. So I think that's part of it. I think the other side is like, you know, tech today has not been equitable. It has been through, I just got back from a panel where I moderated with Cindy Gallup, who's an amazing, fierce woman. And she has said, we've never seen the potential of the web through the female lens. Like, what would that look like? It's been a very certain demographic that has shaped our experience of the internet. And, playing in the playground of possibility, and like, what does a just, equitable, future look like that benefits everyone and it really uplifts everyone? I think that's really exciting, and it's possible. It's all of these, the tech at the end of the day are tools, and it's the intentionality behind them and the will of the people who are creating them to get the most out of them. So I'm forever optimistic and hopeful that that future is possible, because depending on which thought leader, that we're sitting on the precipice of so much abundance, with AI maximizing energy and efficiencies and all of these things. But my ideal future is that everyone truly benefits, and it's not just this like money power grab at the top, and widening the wealth gap and all the other inequalities that already exist, and amplifying those even more.
Yeah, no, I agree. And I think the way we do that is we have to be intentional about how we're building. We have to have policy. We have to onboard people with, just like we think about financial literacy, you need digital and AI literacy. And we need good policy that encourages these things, right? And that's the reason why you mentioned earlier, and this is to get not political, but policy. We need to have policy to guide how we do these things in order to make sure we actually have complete innovations. And we're behind as Americans with policy when it comes to AI, when it comes to data, when it comes to blockchain, actually. And a lot of people don't understand there's a lot of intersections within AI and blockchain. And the fact that the U.S. is so behind in these areas in terms of having good, clear policy, it's actually preventing us from being able to innovate. So what's ironic is people that think that taking away all types of policy, it's my belief that actually inhibits innovation, not the opposite, right? You can go too far, but not having any type of guidance with these type of disruptive technologies in terms of who gets to own it, what does invasion of privacy look like or don't look like. I know just Elon Musk just put up a AI fake of Vice President Kamala Harris, and called her the ultimate DEI candidate, minus the racist trope, which I'll say that's exactly what that is. But the problem is like you're using AI to impersonate somebody's voice in our democracy, and you can see setting a precedent for that really makes me nervous. Of course, politicians lie across the board. That's just something that they do. But you don't want people using your image, likeness, and voice to make it look appear as if something is reality when it actually isn't, because we already know that social media has already warped our brains to believe whatever we want to believe, and we can stay in our circles and believe it, partly because of AI, actually. And so like this ability to actually replicate somebody's voice, like an image, is extremely dangerous. And we don't have any type of regulation to really monitor it. And we should be very, very concerned about what our democracy could look like if we don't know what's true or what's not. Sorry to go down that rabbit hole. So anyway, that's part of what we talk about at MidwestCon. We really talk about policy and what that looks like. And I think there can be a policy that's across the board. Many Democrats and Republicans agree that you shouldn't be able to impersonate people. I think there's some legislation up that has bipartisan support called the No Fakes Act, which is the beginning. But I think we need to look deeper, and hopefully we can get past our lens. But we're in the middle of silly season, as they say, because we're about to have a election. So all rules go out the door. But my hope is we can really just get people to really think thoughtfully about this, because I think policy is very much tied to innovation. Okay, Helen, I want to talk to you a little bit more about MidwestCon and specifically with AI. I want to get your thought on AI and the creator economy. I know some creators are nervous that that AI is just training from training and taking its data in order to better train AI. And we know, I think Instagram doesn't even hide it. And in the US, if you're an artist or something and you have your work up on Meta, Facebook, it can literally train from that and essentially steal from it and learn from it. That's not so in Europe. That is so here. How do you navigate creators around that kind of dichotomy? On one hand, you definitely want to understand the technology. On the other hand, creators and artists, rightfully so, are very worried about how the technology can just take from them without their knowledge. How do you guide them in such a manner?
I mean, it's a very tricky landscape as a creator, especially when you've built large audiences and community and invested a lot of time and resources on these platforms that overnight are saying like, okay, we're going to take all your content and train without really asking permission or consenting into it. And that's certainly a pillar when we talk about creators, artists, anyone, who wants to protect their content. You want control, credit, compensation, and I always forget the fourth one: credit, control, compensation, and another one. So that it's your content and you decide what you can do with it. Pete Blackshaw, who's in our Cincy AI community and with his company Brand Rake, we actually did a podcast episode with him and John Acarino because Pete's thesis is that brands actually need to optimize for these LLMs because that's the new search engine results pages or results. So
Yes.
if your brand is not showing up in any of the ChatGPTs of the world, then does it exist? So his company Brand Rank AI helps optimize. John Acarino comes from a TV broadcasting and large media publishers, and the creator economy, or creators would fall under this bucket of their content is their product. And he actually consults with companies on how to lock down their content so it's not scrapable. So in that regard, I would really recommend creators listen to that episode because there's a lot of really great tips. And it's tricky too, because like right now, and there's some tools out there that's called, I'll have to link into it afterward, like haveibeen-scraped.com or something like that, where you can see if your content's been scraped. But you can actually drop.
Adobe has some tools too, right?
Well, so the content credentials is a little bit different, but yes, it's in this bucket. But there's a lot of code that you can drop onto your website so that all of these LLMs can't scrape your website, and it can protect your content. And then you can actually work with these data marketplaces where.
So what's that called? What's the tool called about scraping your data?
There's different codes that you can drop into it, and then you use data marketplaces. But John Acarino has listed all of them off the top of his head in the interview. But
that'd be good.
We'll link to that episode because we have all of that in the show notes for that episode.
I think in MidwestCon too, I think as you're going to speak about the creator economy. I think bringing those resources to the actual conference would be great for people, because something that we are doing, there's a couple of things that we're doing that are disruptive, pun intended. Like, number one, we don't want everybody to agree. Everybody doesn't have to agree about policy, how they see it. We do want to have a thoughtful, respectful conversation and a view where we can all come together and really talk about what should policy look like or what it shouldn't. But at least we have a full conversation, because there's too many conferences where everybody's agreeing all the time. Like, we don't need to agree on everything. Like, that doesn't make for interesting content. It doesn't make for reality, because the world doesn't agree on everything, on a lot of things. That's number one. Number two, we want to be intentional about being informative. So those tools you talked about, we want to make sure you get them. We're also going to have detailed workshops from AI training in terms of on the technical end, in terms of onboarding education. And Helen, you're welcome to do a workshop as well. But we want to be this way because I think a lot of conferences focus mostly on the entertainment, and what I kind of say, the entertainment and inspiration. We'll have that too. But many conferences tend to be light on the information and the training. And and the curation. And those are the things we actually go heavy on. I do think that's a missing component with many conferences. So excited to, I didn't know those tools either. So I'm excited for you to bring some of those tools and talk to some of the creators, the artists, and the others that are in this space to show them how they can both approach this responsibly and also embrace the technology while still protecting themselves. So I'd like to get a final question in. So what are you most excited about when it comes to MidwestCon?
Oh goodness, this episode is like flown by so fast. I could definitely, yeah. Well, I guess come to MidwestCon to hear everything that I didn't get to say about the content credentials and other ways as a creator to make the most out of this moment in time. But what am I most excited about? You know, I was in the audience last year, and I was so impressed with the quality of speakers and the conversations. And I'm really looking forward to being both in the audience and on stage this year. It's really a fantastic conference, and I was just so impressed. And I remember actually going up and being like, "Hey, I've cloned myself. I'm Helen." And then, like, fast forward, we became fast friends and collaborators. So I'm just honored to be on stage and just as excited to be in the audience because it's a really amazing speakers, and the topics that you cover at the conference are really fantastic. So, and I'm a conference nerd, so I'm excited to be part of it.
Yeah, we're excited to have you, Helen Todd, Creativity Squared. Make sure you check out her podcast. And of course, you make sure to check her out at MidwestCon 2024, September 4th through the 6th. She doesn't know this, but we're gonna actually give you some free code to give out some free tickets to some of your folks. So we will send you a code for some of your folks to send out as well. And let us know about your next episode. We'll make sure to send it out on the podcast, on our email list as well, because it sounds very relevant to what we're doing when we promote your actual session.
Excellent. Rob, it's always a pleasure. Thank you so much for having me on.
As always, it's always been a pleasure. Thank you so much, everybody. Follow us at MidwestCon. If you haven't followed that LinkedIn, please do. You can go to MidwestCon.live to learn more about the topics, what we're going over. We have people from all over, not only the Midwest, but all over the country that are coming here. So we're so excited about what you're going to bring, about what we're able to bring, and looking forward to it. So until then, everybody, keep disrupting.